Now there are some late drones here. I'm not going to focus too much on those. But pool on 14. And gas coming up shortly afterwards. So, yeah, I'm going to put this on ×2. So there are going to be, we're going to see a lot of problems in Shini's execution. That queen is coming out in time, getting a bunch of gas. This all looks fairly good right now, except some late drones. I mean, you see this larva is just sitting there. And he is making 4 Zerglings. Which is okay. I would prefer to see him pushing out a little more with those 4 Zerglings. This says to me, I'm scared of a 6 pool. Please don't 6 pool me. And yeah, it's not that big of a concern. Roach Warren on the way. Continuing to not spend these larvae quite fast enough. And look, the larva pops off. 6 larvae sitting there for a few seconds. And this inject is extremely late. He's even putting down a creep tumor. So foregoing the high production of the queen, I certainly don't like that. If you're on one base with 1 queen, you usually want the extra production. And we can see he was sitting on 3 larvae there for a little while. Just definitely slipping up here a bit. And is switching into the roach production, but like look at the harvester count right here, 17 to 21. So really not staying up on the harvester count, even though Pinball got the quick second gas and the quick lair, right? And Shini got nothing of the sort, only the Roach Warren. Now he's getting an evolution chamber, but the thing is, this evolution chamber actually is too late. This +1 upgrade will not be done at all in time for the attack he's planning on with these next batch of roaches. So that was wasted money. That could have been more roaches. I mean, as a matter of fact, if he'd been macroing well, look, getting supply blocked, and there have been some other supply blocks along the way. Think about this money. So just this upgrade. That's 100 gas. That's 4 more roaches, right? That's a lot. And I think he could have done even better than that. Look at this, 16 harvesters to 25. So really mismanaging his economy, I would say, Shini is. So this should be bigger, right? This should be an even bigger force. And honestly, this little dance he did where he moved up here and target fired the infestation pit and then moved around here and then got killed, he doesn't need to do that. He can just move these roaches right up here even, just like right behind the mineral line. I kind of like this corner even. Maybe all the way in the back. And just pick off his spine crawler, pick off drones. In other words, what I'm saying is Shini should be able to just win the game at this point, particularly if he had a few more roaches. So what kind of looked like it was a good situation for Pinball, like he had done this build really well and executed it well and that it was all going to work out well, it looks like it might just die to a really well executed roach attack. So what can we deduce from that? Well, I would spend a little bit of time thinking about why do we want these infestors so quickly, and more than that, what are infestors good at? And this is kind of a long train of thought that you want to be having. You know, you play StarCraft not just on one day, you play it over a period of weeks, and you think about these things a lot. So these kinds of questions, you don't necessarily want to find a quick answer. You just want to ponder them a little bit. And I would say that you want to look at fungal growth, and clearly sort of the damage that it does isn't really enough to justify the infestors by itself. The immobility aspect is absolutely key in fighting off this kind of push. We saw that those infestors were able to stall the army a little bit. Maybe they could have stalled them a bit more. And that allowed a bunch of roaches to come out. And in fact, that's exactly how Pinball finally wins. He uses the fact that he's been making drones all this time to get up a big army and fight his opponent off. Okay, but his opponent really could have done more damage and had a stronger army, and the fact that he was able to get into the base is bad. He could have done a huge amount of damage. So I would say that that mobility aspect of the infestor needs to be used in a much more deliberate and precise way. I would go so far as to say maybe you should try using infestors the same way Protoss use sentries. In other words, to hold the ramp. So those 3 fungal growths are out, and assuming you're not dead yet, You push up here with your small force, and remember he did have a good force out when the infestors hit their key moment. And if you're into the whole timing thing, you can even figure out exactly what moment that was. Look at this. 7 minutes, 7.5 minutes, infestors pop out. Infestors building up energy, building up energy, building up energy, building up energy. And there we are at about 8 minutes or so. Infestors have the energy. So at 8 minutes, you want to secure the ramp with Zerglings and roaches. And then anything that tries to come up, any roach ball, rather, that tries to come up, you just fungal growth right there at the ramp. Fungal growth lasts for, we can look this up, 8 seconds. So that means with 3 fungal growths, you can buy 24 seconds while doing damage, of course, to your opponent's roaches. In the meantime, what are you doing? Well, you're making roaches so that you can survive when he finally inevitably does push up the ramp. And in the meantime, you're also trying to arc here with the roaches you do have so that those fungal roaches are suffering as much as possible. Okay, so this has been an exercise in thinking about builds. And hopefully you've gotten something out of it, but in any case, the key idea that you should be taking away is a build is not just something you do. It should be something you really think about and tweak and optimize and refine. That's really the key word. You want to keep refining what you're doing. Of course, it's possible at some point that you decide, you know what, this strategy is garbage. It doesn't work. It loses to X, and there's nothing I can do. But even if that happens, let me emphasize this, even if that happens to your build, you have still improved as a player. And that is very, very important. By doing this kind of analysis, you can take those lessons learned over to different builds, even to different races if you want. This is something I've been doing recently. I've been playing a lot of Protoss, and I'm discovering, wow, a whole bunch of the thinking I've done about Zerg carries directly over. You, of course, need to learn new things. Always, there's new things to learn in StarCraft, but the more you think along these lines in very precise terms about what you're doing and how you are going to react to your opponent and what you really need to secure that lead and what your plan is step by step, get infestors, push out and expand, something like that, some kind of series of ideas, the more you crystallize that stuff in the mind, the better you will get. And this is one of the reasons I very much dislike the label cheese a lot of the times when it's applied, because it's used as a way of dismissing strategies. For example, in the beta, there was this lots and lots of people would go for lots of cloaked banshees early, and that was a good time. Or not even cloaked. They would just go 2 Starport Banshees and just hope their opponent didn't have anti-air. And, most of the time they wouldn't. And they would win. So it was this tremendously strong thing in the beta to go 2 Starport Banshees. And I remember somebody in the forums giving this build order for it that was just terrible. And I, pointed out that it was terrible. And he sort of said, well, this is obviously a bad build, so why should we bother optimizing it? But no, that is not how I feel. Whatever you're doing, even if it's a 6 pool every game, even if it's some ridiculous cheese, you should be optimizing it to the greatest extent of your abilities, because optimization is one of the key skills in StarCraft, to have your money down, to have your ideas sort of manifest in a clear and prompt manner throughout the game, and to deal with whatever gets thrown at you in a graceful way. That comes as the result of being very rigorous, really, about these kinds of things. So anyway, I will stop giving this little speech, and hopefully you will tune into my next show, which will be on cheese. I should be doing that tomorrow. I'm going to be analyzing the entire concept of cheese and showing you some interesting cheeses. Hopefully I get the GSTL replays for that. There have been some good ones. So, for now, this has been Laddering Up with Moduli Stack. Hope you are all having an excellent Tuesday evening, or Tuesday, whatever time of the day it is in your country of residence. I guess it would be Wednesday in some countries by now. Fancy that. Okay, and this is Moduli Stack saying toodaloo.